Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Asher from SSR and welcome to SSR seminar today. In today's seminar, we'll be listening to three recently graduated honor students who will be presenting on their thesis. This is our annual social work students honors thesis presentation, where we give this platform for them to actually showcase their work and hopefully interact with the sector. For today, there will be three presentations. First by Jennifer, who will be presenting on the relationship between attachment style, counterfactual thinking on post-breakup distress. This will be followed by Shirley, who will be talking about an exploratory study on youth workers' perception of youth social media's usage. Followed by Insira, who will be talking about promoting youth at risk participation in programs. The moderator for today's session is Mr. Alvin Chua, who is lecturer at NUS Department of Social Work. Before we begin, I'll be talking through a few brief announcements. Firstly, we are recording this on Facebook. So at this moment, while you're watching this on Zoom, we are also streaming this live on our Facebook page. And the video recording will be available after the event. Also, content from our seminar recordings may be used for publicity purposes in the future. Therefore, by participating in this seminar, you acknowledge and consent to the above. Secondly, the seminar recording will be shared with all registrants in a post-seminar email. Our speakers have also kindly agreed to share their slides, so please look out for the post-seminar email, which will happen a few days after this event. Thirdly, for Q&A, the main way to submit your questions for Q&A will be through the Poll EV link. You may either scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now, or visit the link at pollev.com/SSR seminar. This link will allow you to submit questions anonymously. For this seminar, since we have three different speakers speaking on three different topics, please direct your questions to the speaker you would like a response from. You may also use the upvote function to vote for questions that interest you and hope for it to be answered first. We will not be taking any questions from the Zoom chat and Facebook comments. A few other announcements. Firstly, SSR has just released our research guide on conducting semi-structured interviews within social service research. This is written by our research fellow, Dr. Xi Jianping. For more information and to access the research guide, please scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now. And without further ado, I will now pass my time on to Jennifer, who will begin her presentation. Jennifer, please.
Hi guys, are you able to see my screen? So I'm going to start first. Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer, and I did my honors thesis on the relationship between attachment style and counterfactual thinking on post-breakup distress. So, hold on, sorry. I'll start by introducing some important concepts that are relevant to my thesis, and then I'll briefly share my study methods and results before concluding the presentation with important takeaways. So I'm sure most of us have experienced at least one romantic relationship breakup in our lives thus far. And breakups are actually pretty common, and they happen to be more common during university time. Hence, breakups are the most common reasons university students actually seek counseling support. And when I looked into factors that predict one's post-breakup distress levels, I found that attachment style was a significant predictor of post-breakup distress. So for those of us who are not familiar with attachment theory, you just need to know that there are 4 attachment styles. And these styles are secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. So in summary, secure individuals can self-regulate their emotions. Anxious individuals have a fear of abandonment. Avoidant individuals tend to withdraw emotionally from others. And disorganized individuals are pretty rare in the population, but they have characteristics of both anxious and avoidant individuals. So they fear rejection, but they also struggle with being emotionally intimate with others. And many studies have actually shown that anxious individuals experience the most distress post-breakup, while secure individuals experience the least post-breakup distress. And while avoidant individuals also show lower post-breakup distress, the researchers found that this is not really because they have coped effectively with the breakup, but it's more like they suppress their emotions and thoughts surrounding the breakup. And now then I'll share about this concept called counterfactual thinking. So counterfactual thinking is a process of envisioning an alternative scenario to what actually occurred. And there are two types of counterfactual thinking. So there's upward and there's downward. Upward counterfactual thinking involves mentally imagining a better alternative to what actually happened. And downward counterfactual thinking involves mentally imagining a worse alternative to what actually happened. And researchers have found links between counterfactual thinking and one's emotions. So engaging in upward counterfactual thinking leads to like negative emotions, such as regret and disappointment, because you imagine a better alternative. And in contrast, downward counterfactual thinking leads to positive emotions like relief and gratitude, because you reflect on worse alternatives that could have happened. And although upward counterfactual thinking leads to negative emotions, researchers have actually emphasized the importance of engaging in upward counterfactual thinking to focus on future improvements. And researchers have applied counterfactual thinking to relationship research in general. In 2010, Cree et al. Found that those who engage in downward counterfactual thinking and thought about how their lives would have been worse off if they didn't meet their current partner actually felt more satisfied with their relationship. But reading this study got me thinking, would the same findings apply to those who have just exited a relationship? Because for someone who have just experienced a breakup, thinking about how their lives would have been worse off if they didn't meet their partner might enhance yearning for their ex-partner and perpetuate negative emotions they already have post-breakup. In contrast, I felt that for someone who experienced the breakup, thinking about how their lives would have been better if they didn't meet their current partner might increase their motivation to live a better life without their ex-partner. And this motivation could alleviate any negative emotions they're experiencing during the breakup. So, spurred by my curiosity, I embarked on this honors thesis to examine how attachment styles and counterfactual thinking could influence post-breakup distress levels and whether there are any interactions between them. And I hypothesized that engaging in upward counterfactual thinking would lower the participants' post-breakup distress, whereas engaging in downward counterfactual thinking would heighten participants' post-breakup distress. And as for interactions, I hypothesized that secure individuals who engage in upward counterfactual thinking will experience lower post-breakup distress. In contrast, anxious individuals who engage in downward counterfactual thinking would experience higher post-breakup distress. And by embarking on this study, I hope the results would inform behavioral science practitioners on the effectiveness of encouraging upward counterfactual thinking to facilitate clients' post-breakup growth. And now I'll discuss the study's methods. So the inclusion criteria for participants were that they had to be between 18 to 25 years old, and they needed to have experienced at least one breakup distress between September 2022 and September 2023, which was when this study was conducted. And my study managed to recruit 89 participants, of which data from about 28 participants were included for analysis. Data from the remaining 61 participants were excluded due to attrition. The main age of the participants were 22, and their average relationship duration was around 11 months, and the average number of breakups experienced among participants was around 2 in their lifetime. And for materials, I used 3 questionnaires. So the first is the Experiences in Close Relationships Revised Scale. And this scale was used to determine participants' attachment style and has been shown to have good psychometric properties. So the second is a self-developed reflection questionnaire. This is to prompt participants to engage in counterfactual thinking. And participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 conditions. The first is upward counterfactual thinking, the second is downward counterfactual thinking, and the last is a control condition where they were not prompted to engage in counterfactual thinking. So instead, participants in the control condition merely were tasked with factual recall of their past relationships. And lastly, the breakup distress scale was used to measure participants' distress levels after their breakup. Higher scores indicate higher distress levels, and this scale has been shown to have good psychometric properties. In terms of procedure, participants first accessed the study link through Qualtrics and were shown a participant information sheet, which detailed the study information, and we sought informed consent from the participants to proceed with the study. And for those that consented to the study, they were first directed to complete the ECRR scale, where there's no time limit. Afterwards, they were directed to complete the reflection questionnaire, and they were given 2 minutes to type out their answers in open-ended response. And lastly, they were directed to complete the breakup distress scale, where again, there was no time limit for completion. So in terms of design, this study is therefore a 4x3 quasi-experimental design. This means that the study has 2 independent variables. The first independent variable is attachment style, and it has 4 levels which correspond to the 4 attachment styles. The second independent variable is prompt type, which has 3 levels corresponding to the 3 conditions in the reflection questionnaire. And the dependent variable is the participant post-breakup distress level as measured by the breakup distress scale. So now for the anticipated results. When looking at the attachment style alone, we see that secure individuals experience the most breakup distress, while anxious individuals experience secure individuals experience the least post-breakup distress, while anxious individuals experience the most breakup distress. However, a one-way ANOVA revealed no significant effect of attachment styles on distress levels. Despite having non-significant results, the descriptive statistics lend support somewhat to existing research, which demonstrated that anxious individuals experience the most breakup distress, while secure individuals experience the least post-breakup distress. And when looking at counterfactual thinking alone, those in the control condition experience the least distress, while those in the downward counterfactual thinking condition experience the most distress. Again, one-way ANOVA revealed no significant effect of counterfactual thinking on distress levels, but the descriptive statistics do lend support somewhat to the hypothesis that engaging in downward counterfactual thinking would result in higher post-breakup distress. But descriptive statistics actually didn't really lend support to the hypothesis that engaging in downward or upward counterfactual thinking would lower post-breakup distress. So now I'll discuss the potential reasons for non-significant results. The first is a low sample size. So this is a quantitative study with a sample size of 28. Hence, it had low statistical power and was prone to type 2 error, also known as false negative. And the second concerns potential methodological flaws, especially with the self-developed reflection questionnaire. Due to resource constraints, the questionnaire didn't really undergo any pilot testing or any manipulation checks. So it's possible that participants either didn't fully understand the task or had an incorrect understanding of how to complete the counterfactual thinking task. And lastly, there may be indeed no relationship between counterfactual thinking and post-breakup distress levels, which leads me to my conclusion. This study didn't actually provide any evidence, strong evidence, demonstrating the benefit of encouraging upward counterfactual thinking to facilitate post-breakup growth. So until further studies can confirm or falsify the current findings, it is actually recommended that practitioners refrain from using counterfactual thinking during their breakup counseling with clients, specifically upward counterfactual thinking. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you for attentive attendance.
Jennifer, can you please stop share? Thanks.
Hey, hello everyone. Okay, I'm Shirley and today I'll be presenting on my thesis on youth focused perception of youth social media usage. So this will be the flow of my presentation. So my thesis focuses on youth social media usage as they were born into the digital age, and these individuals are commonly known as digital natives. And digital natives have distinctive behavior characteristics such as heightened familiarity with the daily use of technology and a greater comfort level in expressing themselves online, unlike previous generations. So these youths are also at the adolescent stage where they seek to self-discover and experiment with various interests, values, and goals, and their decision-making and impulse control are still developing, which may impact how they navigate the digital landscape. So my thesis also looks at youth social media usage from the perspective of youth workers who are well situated within the community and may better recognize how social media influences youth. So furthermore, in European countries, steps have been taken to incorporate digital youth work into traditional youth work to remain relevant and empower youth. Digital youth work means to proactively use or address digital media and technology aimed at enhancing the accessibility and significance of services for youth. So there are two gaps in existing findings. So firstly, existing literature on the benefits and risks of social media usage concentrates on the perspectives of youth through self-report questionnaires or interviews. And youth workers may have a different perspective on social media usage. And by understanding their point of view, interventions can be introduced accordingly to provide support for youth. Secondly, there's also a lack of knowledge of any youth organizations programs related to youth social media usage or how youth workers curb social media risks and harness its benefits. So my three research questions are: what are youth workers' perception of youth social media usage? How do youth workers harness the benefits and mitigate the risk of social media? And what are some suggestions for future youth work regarding social media? So in this research, I used a qualitative method and purposive sampling was employed to recruit 6 youth workers from 2 different social service agencies. And then these are the inclusion and exclusion criteria for the research. So youth workers are required to work more than a year to ensure that they have sufficient experience with youth to contribute meaningfully to the study. And this is the demographic information of the participants. So all of them have a range of between 2 to 7 years of working within the youth sector, and they also work in various programs and have observations and knowledge of youth social media usage. So the participants identified some opportunities of social media, such as self-expression, the broadening of social networks, and use as content creators. So there are certain features of social media which enable self-expressions, such as the use of stickers and emojis and content reposting. So an example of content reposting shared by a participant was when a youth reposted about someone looking at a happy couple photo, and when the scene zoomed out, he was alone. Yeah, so social media allows youth to express their innermost feelings and thoughts and serve as a way to seek support. By sharing these emotions, their followers can reach out and show them care. And social media also enables youth to behave in a manner that is congruent with themselves. So as social media can be an outlet for youth to express themselves, youth workers can look out for certain cues like the content reposting when they engage with youth on social media. Furthermore, participants also stated that social media provides a space for youth to create content and display their expertise or interests. So features such as like and following allow youth to receive feedback, which can increase their competence in using social media. And editing platforms also enable them to curate what they want to present on social media. So as youths grow up in the digital age, they have the expertise in using certain functions of social media or design programs, which youth workers can tap on to further their competence in content creation. And lastly, social media can broaden one's social network through features such as direct messaging and viewing other people's profile. So this allows youth to meet individuals beyond their immediate social circle as they get to see, for instance, their friends or friends' profiles. And additionally, this benefits those who are more socially anxious offline, as social media mitigates anxiety-related cues to offline conversations, such as maintaining eye contact. And it also, besides forming friendships, social media also offers opportunities for youth to explore romantic relationships, such as the use of telebot apps. Yeah, and besides the opportunities, the participants also highlighted some risks, such as living up to unrealistic expectations, exposure to illegal content, and cyberbullying. So social media provides a platform where youth engage in upward social comparison and feel pressured to conform to unrealistic standards. Youth can create their posts which can foster a culture of comparison, and the challenges and trends on social media may further perpetuate the internalization of idealized body types and unhealthy behaviors. And youth may also seek external validation, which may compromise their sense of autonomy and intrinsic motivation. So, given this, youth workers can play a crucial role in fostering intrinsic motivation and cultivating a stable sense of self among youth. I think another risk is the exposure to illegal content. So as social media transcends geographical boundaries, its content visibility extends to other countries, normalizing behaviors such as vaping. And the accessibilities of various contents blurs the line between what is legal and illegal in Singapore, potentially influencing youth to experiment with these behaviors. Thus, it's important for a new focus to educate youth and increase their digital literacy. And lastly, cyberbullying is a risk of social media as it enables youth to disseminate information about others, and they are able to post content on public pages and worsen the humiliation experienced by the victims. The motivations behind all this include seeking social justice for oneself or others, or purely for entertainment purposes. So youth workers can seek to foster empathy among youth to understand how the victims feel upon being cyberbullied or knowing that they have appeared on a page that they don't want to. So currently, youth workers do use social media to engage youth and occasionally have conversations about them, like about social media. So youth workers use social media as a tool to interact with youth, a form of digital youth work practice. So using social media allows youth workers to build and maintain the therapeutic relationships with youth and provide psychosocial support when required. And they also mitigate social media risk when they observe that the youth are presenting risky behaviors online, such as breaking their mandated curfew or posting emotionally distress-related content. So this helps to enhance the youth workers' preventive role. And besides conversing with youth, the participants who also disseminate information about upcoming events or raise awareness about certain issues. However, they do not really fully harness the benefits of social media, as the interactions are mostly one-directional from them to the youth. So the one-directional communication would decrease the involvement of youth and reduce their connection to the organization. Youth workers have also engaged in conversations about with youth about social media. So they would use reflective questions to create learning opportunities for the youth and allow them to make meaning of their experiences. However, the conversations would usually take place in the setting of mandated programs or when youth have already faced risky behaviors online, such as being involved in cyberbullying or illegal transactions. So these findings differ from existing literature where most European youth workers have incorporated digitalization as a whole for positive youth development. So one of the differences could be because some of the participants feel that the usage of social media is not a pressing need to be addressed, or that they perceive youth to know the consequences of their behaviors online. So there are two main suggestions for future youth work. So firstly, the participants encourage tapping onto the strengths and voices of the youth. So they suggested that focus group discussions can be organized in order to gain insights on the needs on the ground from the youth themselves of social media. And it has also been shown that involvement of youth voices can inform program design and can empower them. Additionally, the participants also state that instead of consuming content, they can encourage youth to be content creators instead. And such programs can provide youth with an increased sense of mastery and competence in using social media. Secondly, the participants suggested that they can increase their competence by engaging other stakeholders, such as other youth organizations or social media experts, to guide and inform practices. And by having cross-collaboration, youth workers can learn best practices from one another, allowing them to engage with youth more effectively. think to add on, there's some further implications for this study. So there seem to be more remedial programs related to social media usage than preventive ones. So Youth Focus can roll out programs that seek to challenge youth to think critically about digital content and reduce some risk involved. And also, as Youth Focus may lack the necessary knowledge to effectively engage youth regarding social media usage, the roles and skills required of Youth Focus can be revised to ensure an alignment with the current demands of the job. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you for listening. Then I pass on to Inshira.
Hello everyone, I'm Inshira and I'll be presenting on promoting youth at risk participation in programs. So just to explain, so this is the content page for my presentation. Okay, so just to explain the motivation and background behind my thesis. So I'm pretty sure that many workers out there face challenges in sustaining youth at risk attendance in programs due to premature dropouts and the lack of interest in programs. Additionally, youth arrest in Singapore has had decreased from 2703 to 2023 from 2018 to 2022. And the youth's responsiveness to the intervention efforts were accounted for this. So this shows the importance of focusing on the promotion of youth participation in programs so that these numbers continue to decrease. Another motivation was that other studies on youth participation use markers such as participation and non-participation, which are not true markers of active youth participation in programs. So these studies do not focus on whether the youths were actively engaged in the programs. Also, little research has also been done to study the effectiveness of youth at-risk programs when high participation is being achieved. And other studies also do not focus in depth on the investigation of different condition, tools, space factors to promote youth at-risk participation in programs. Okay, so I'll be moving on to defining youth at risk and youth at risk programs in my thesis. So this thesis adopts this definition of youth at risk, which is youths who are 12 to 18 years of age, who possess conduct issues and or those who have risk factors caused by structural or familial factors such as poverty, family issues, and unsafe neighborhoods. So the reason why this definition is being chosen is because this research is being done in Singaporean context. So it's fitting that an MSF definition is used. And also, this definition takes into consideration that the state of risk that the youths are living in and their innate traits are the contributors to their at-risk status. So these are the different types of youth programs that are being considered in this study. I'm pretty sure that many of you are aware of these categories, so I'm just going to move on. Okay, so on to defining participation. Just to recap on the background of my thesis, I stated that one of my motivations for my thesis was that many literature out there use markers such as participation and non-participation, which are not true markers of active participation. So participation for youth in this thesis essentially means that they are not simply attending the program as passive receivers, but as active receivers of the program. Therefore, this study employs attendance and engagement as markers to explore facilitators and barriers to youth participation. Therefore, the research aims of this study is to explore in Singaporean context facilitators and barriers in promoting youth at-risk attendance and engagement in programs, as well as the perceived effectiveness of youth at-risk programs. Okay, so on to the methodology. So this study employed a qualitative research method with a semi-structured interviews as a form of data collection. Okay, so this is the inclusion criteria of the participants for this study. They are 21 years and above, able to converse in English, involved in at least one youth program, has at least 5-month working experience, and have these working titles, which are program executive, youth workers, social workers, social work associates, and so on. And yeah. Okay, So overall, 6 participants were employed for this study, and they met the inclusion criteria for this study. So as you can see, the participants are mainly workers from youth drop-in centers, youth homes, and other social service organizations. So they engage with youths ranging from low to high risk and are involved in at least one or more programs. All right, moving on to key findings. So the data were thematically analyzed to form different teams. So for barriers to youth at risk participation, it is found that demands in youth's life was the most prominent theme found, and the sub-themes were school, parents, and youth self. So demands from school, parents, and youth self. Okay. So for school as barrier to participation, the main reason was that school takes precedence over youth programs in social, which happens in social organizations. So yeah, so youth will prioritize their school over youth programs, which will affect their attendance. Also, school poses a barrier to engagement for youths, as you know, most of them have long days at school, so they'll feel tired to attend the youth programs that often occur after school. Okay, then parents as barrier. So often due to the collaboration that organizations have with parents, uh, parents would the parents would determine the attendance of the youth in particular programs because they would want their children to attend programs that their own children might not want or the organization might not want. Okay, on to the youth self. So the state of risk or the fact that most of these youths come from low income families also pose a barrier to their attendance in programs. So as you can see in the example here, it might be quite difficult for them to commit. Some of them might be working also. So they prioritize getting that side income rather than going for that youth program. Okay, on to facilitators to youth at risk participation in programs. So the prominent themes from the data collected is positive relationships, co- collaborative program planning, conducive program environment, and use of program tools. Okay, so for positive relationships, there are two sub-themes, which is positive worker and youth relationship and positive peer relationships. So for positive worker and youth relationships, it is reported that relationships built on compatibility and relatedness promotes youth at risk engagement. And you can see the example down there. Yeah. Okay. So reasons for this occurring is that more genuine connections can be formed when worker and youths are compatible with each other, which will encourage youths to attend the program. Okay. Other than compatibility, relationships built on relatability also helps in boosting youth engagement in programs. So relatability can be built on through the use of youth language, banter, and the formation of professional friendships. Okay. Positive peer relationships also promotes youth attendance and engagement in programs. The company of friends are associated with the idea of fun, which makes the youths more motivated to attend the programs. Through the pairing of youth based on compatibility also, it is found to boost youth engagement in programs. So because it will prevent any conflicts or disruptions from occurring in the program itself. Yeah, I think the example states there clearly about this. Yep, so for collaborative program planning, feedback gathering and shared power were the sub-themes formed and found. So for feedback gathering from youth for programs, it is found that this itself helps to promote attendance and engagement of youth in programs. This is because when youth's feedbacks are being applied to programs, the programs will be more aligned with the youth's needs and interests. And an additional plus point is that these youths will have an increased appreciation towards workers. So I think this example clearly explains this. I'm just going to move on. Okay, moving on to shared power. When there's shared power, okay, this allows shared power, meaning shared power with the youth in planning and execution of programs. It helps to boost youth at risk attendance and engagement in programs. So when this is achieved, the programs are more crafted according to the youth's needs and interests, and this provides the youths with a sense of accountability towards the program. So I think this example explains that, okay, let me just read. We empower them, that ability to run the activities themselves, and that gets a lot of engagement because firstly, they already have that interest. So that buy-in is already there when you involve the youths from the start and give them that shared power. Okay. Moving on to conducive program environment, the sub-themes form was group versus space size and outdoor versus indoor space. Okay, so for group versus space size, the participants emphasized the importance of having a space with little to no distractions to boost youth engagement. Participants also emphasized the importance of finding the right space size that is able to comfortably cater the size of the group of youths so that the program environment is comfortable, warm, and inviting for the youths. So this will essentially again boost their engagement in the programs. Okay, so this is the example. All right. So another sub-theme for conducive program environment is outdoor versus indoor space. So alternating between outdoor and indoor spaces helps to promote youth at risk attendance and engagement in programs. This is because usually outdoor programs, programs that are done out in outdoor spaces are associated with the idea of fun and engaging activities. Okay, so here's the example. All right. So moving on to useful program tools, the sub-themes include use of incentives and multimodal tools. So for use of incentives, participants reported that the use of food items such as incentives provide extrinsic motivation, which helps to promote youth attendance in programs. Okay, so participants also found that in order to promote and sustain youth attendance in programs, incentives should also be given at the end of the program or after completing the program. Yeah, so for programs with long runs also, it is found that it's beneficial to give incentives at certain checkpoints to ensure and promote their attendance in the program as well. Here's the example. Okay. All right. So for multimodal tools, participants reported that by using visuals, pen, paper, digital devices, and other tools, it helps to cater to the different learning needs of the youths, which helps to make the programs more engaging for the youths, because this essentially makes them better understand and relate to the content of the program, which also again boosts their engagement in the program. Okay. So this is the example again. All right. So these findings are being supported by the self-determination theory. So for positive relationships, it satisfies um it is satisfied through the presence, sorry, the need of relatedness in the self-determination theory is satisfied through the presence of positive relationship. Okay. This is because the youths are able to feel a sense of belonging in the program, which motivates them to attend and engage in the programs. So through collaborative program planning, the need of autonomy for youths are being nurtured. So this causes the youths to be intrinsically motivated to attend and engage in the programs. And then through conducive environment and use of program tools, okay, the need of competence for the youths are being nurtured as they are able to relate and better understand the content learned, which promotes their competence and essentially causes them to be intrinsically motivated to attend and engage in the programs. So, having found these facilitators, the perceived effectiveness of youth programs that have been implemented, sorry, having found these facilitators, the perceived effectiveness of the facilitators were also being gathered from this thesis. Okay, so the first perceived effectiveness is from the implementation of feedback gathering. So it is found that the youths were able to hone new skills, which led to an improvement in their behavior. Okay, so it's also important to note that these skills gain is dependent on the content of the program. Okay, so the example here explains that in this program, after the youth's feedback was being gathered and applied to the second round of the program, the there was an improvement in the youth's behavior and him just gaining skills to be more confident. Yes. Okay. Another perceived effectiveness through the implementation of the use of incentives and positive relationships are the youths returning back to contribute as volunteers. So the positive relationship created in the programs encouraged the youths to return back as volunteers. So the previous use of incentives in the program were also reported to have lasting impacts on the youth's participation in programs. So yeah, this is the example. I think I'm just gonna move on due to the lack of time. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through the implications to social work practice from my thesis. Okay, so the first implication is the application of facilitators and barriers into practice. So there should be consideration of the barriers and the facilitators, which are useful strategies to promote youth at-risk participation in programs. So this is to help maximize the youth at-risk benefits from the program. It is also crucial to consider engagement and attendance as markers for measuring youth participation in programs. Another implication is agency and stakeholder support for workers. So a common challenge from the participants I interviewed was that they were unable to implement the facilitators due to agency constraints and demands from stakeholders. So there's a misalignment in priorities from agency and stakeholders for youth at risk programs. So that's why they find challenges in applying these facilitators. So I think this implication stresses the importance of support from agency and agency stakeholders to implement such facilitators that I've stated in this thesis. Okay, so in conclusion, youth at risk can only maximize the benefits of programs when they are active receivers instead of passive receivers of the program. And it is also found from my thesis that positive relationship is the most prominent facilitators in promoting youth at-risk participation in programs. Additionally, the perceived effects of facilitators highlights the importance of workers and agencies of being cognizant and applying facilitators into programs to promote youth participation, and also the importance of agency and stakeholder support for the application of facilitators. All right, so I've come to the end of my presentation. Think
Thank you, Inshira. Okay. And of course, congratulations to Jennifer, Shirley, and Inshira for not only completing your thesis presentation, but also completing your degree. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elvin. I'm one of the lecturers with the Department of Social Work. It's a great privilege to be here this afternoon to be moderating this session. And I would like to echo what our Asher and the team, from SSR had said. If you have any question, please continue to put it on the link there so that we could actually review those questions, and we will come to those questions really soon. Okay, let's see. Are we going to have the rest of maybe Jennifer and Shirley? You could also turn on your cam, and then we could so that everybody get to see you. Okay, we're definitely going to give Inshira a time to drink some water and catch a breath. So, so the first question, of course, we have to go to Jennifer because she's taken a break already. So, I think a lot of people are quite interested in this counterfactual thinking. So maybe I'm just going to start with this question first. That's to you. Are the three categories of counterfactual thinking in the reflection questionnaire mutually exclusive, or could have the control group engage in both upward and downward counterfactual thinking?
Okay, thank you for the question. In the context of my research, yes, it is mutually exclusive. They were randomly assigned to one of the three conditions, either upward, downward, or control. So in this context, they couldn't have participated in both conditions because there's a unique participant identity and they're only allowed to participate once.
Okay, so it's mutually exclusive. It's either one or the other. All right. Okay. let me go to the next question, and maybe I will just ask Shirley first, so we give everybody a chance to answer first, to warm up a little bit. Okay, this question to Shirley about the youth worker and the social media, right? So if social workers use social media to connect with the youth they work with, how do they draw the line between personal and professional? Because you talk about overseas that have been using digital social work, right? So doing youth work via social media and not sharing too much of their personal life. From your research, did you get to hear from the practitioners? How do they actually draw the line?
I think based on the youth workers that I interviewed, so they have separate accounts for like their personal lives and working with youth. Yeah, so for instance, one would have like the whole organization would have one social media that dedicated to just interacting with youth. So on that social media, they would on the account they would share like things about their organization, what they're doing, and also there won't be a lot of like personal information about youth workers. Yeah, I also know of some who have just two separate accounts, like personal and work. So they separate both. Yeah, and if the youth like ask them about their personal account, then they would not share lah. Like I think they will explain to the youth like why they will not share and all. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess it's even though we may formally have an official account, but given this technology, right, it's not difficult for them to know like, hey, this is a friend that you might know and stuff like that, right? So they could add others, or they could just follow that personal account. But what I'm hearing from Shirley is that the workers themselves will draw a fairly like clear boundaries and say, no, we were going to engage you just using the professional account rather than the personal account. I've got a personal question to add to that. So this is not on the list, because one of the things that you mentioned is that in your research, you found out actually that through the use of this technology and social media, it helps to mitigate risky behavior, right? So one of the slides you say mitigate risky behavior, and is done primarily, and you have also explained that it's done primarily through, like, let's say if they are sharing some maybe a slightly more emotional posts, so the worker can go in and check on them, or yeah. But so it's somewhat related, yet not related to the first question that was asked by the audience, whether the personal and professional. So if, let's say, while there is this finding about mitigating risky behavior, what is did the worker themselves tell you the burden that they feel? Because does it mean that they have to always be watching, and then like, okay, if let's say I'm going to cut myself as a youth, and then and I just needed to let people know, right? So I took a photo of that and I post. So had that been something that the worker kind of like shared with you, how, to what extent do they feel burdened about the need to mitigate risky behavior on the social media?
Yeah, so I think in relation to that question, I think the youth workers also kind of know all these youths personally, like offline setting also. So I think I think some of them do share with me that, sometimes they don't know whether to intervene or not, cause maybe like there are too much sharing going on online also. Yeah, so I think one of the things that maybe they kind of do is to, during their offline sessions, they kind of catch these youths and then ask about certain things, or like if it's really out of character, like maybe for instance the youths normally don't share this kind of content. Yeah, so then it would be like out of character, and then they would kind of know that okay, something is going on, or like through their offline interactions they already know that the youths are going through, maybe for instance relationship problems and all. So if online they see certain risky behaviors, then they might intervene also. Yeah, so it's also, I think, mainly through offline interactions also. Yeah.
So
And
it's a bit like intelligence collection, right? Like you get all this spying, and then like, oh, okay. So I'm sensing that this person might not be feeling so good, so well. So then I can kind of like check in a little bit with him or her. All right. So so the workers have not complained that it's kind of burdensome doing like digital social work, because I seem to you know, like, because at least if we meet face to face, there's a proper like maybe 8 to 5, right? But digital world is 24/7. So have they actually complained about that?
Yeah, I think they try not to scroll through the social media
Right.
accounts like after work. Yeah, cause I guess you also want the social workers also want to create that boundary also between their work and personal life. Like they wouldn't want to kind of bring back work to their personal life. So
Mm.
I think yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you so much. And I guess maybe Inshira is ready for the next question. If caught caught your breath and
Yes.
drink some water.
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Okay, good. Yeah. The audience are actually quite interested in, we talk a lot about the self-determination theory, right? And then
Yes.
and there are different aspects to that. And then one of the questions that was posed is that um to what extent do the youth workers actually involve the youth at risk in the planning of the program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what are some of the roles? Because we always talk about giving the client a voice and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So what did you find out from your research?
Okay, so there was one from the data I collected. So I think many of them, there was this agency that did like a council organization, where they picked the particular youths that they deem were I guess they had the capabilities to run programs. So they chose those youths to run the programs first. And I think you're talking about the level of responsibility that they were given, right?
Actually, more like the involvement, so
How
not so
involved
much,
they are.
yeah, involved, like how involved are they in planning the program?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yep. So how involved they were in planning the program. Okay, a lot of it, they really just this organization, okay, back to the council organization about
Mm,
this data that I collected. They gave them the liberty to plan programs on their own. And yeah, and they chose like specific youths to plan these programs, and then they get the buy-in from their own friends, because they use their relationships with their peers to get the buy-in from them. And then yeah, it slowly builds on lah. Yeah.
right. Okay, there are a few more questions about involving the youth I'm going to ask in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So maybe I will just go back to Jennifer for now.
Yeah.
And of course, earlier on Jennifer said this. We all might have experienced a breakup, around this age. Yeah. So one of the questions is that while it's almost like, okay, it's part of life, right? Experiencing breakup and all that. So, but doing it as a piece of research would be quite different. What were some ethical considerations that you had when asking the respondents about their big breakup experience? And also, could you please, maybe shed some light as to why the attrition was actually so high?
Okay, I'll answer the first part about ethical considerations. So when I first submitted my study proposal to DERC, they were also quite concerned because like asking questions about breakup experiences might bring up unpleasant feelings in participants. So actually there was a debrief where all research participants were given resources to counseling agencies if they need to process their experiences after participating in this study. And eventually I also did get approval from DERC in terms of the way I phrased my questions. So I assume that must have passed some ethical barriers that they might have considered. Yeah, and the second part on why the attrition rate is so high, to be very frank, this study was done voluntarily, so there were no funding and participants did not receive any financial reimbursement for their participation. So to sit through 3 questionnaires, which were quite detailed, yeah, it takes a lot of motivation, and without financial reimbursement, it could have affected participants' motivation levels. Because when I subsequently went to see where the attrition happened, it's usually towards the end of the study during the 3rd questionnaire when they are like fatigued and tired, because the first 2 were really quite detailed.
Right. Thank you for that very clear and detailed explanation. So for those who are in the room and then planning for your next research project, remember to throw in an incentive or two, so that it makes it less painful to participate. At least there's a sweetener there. All right. So there's a question back to Jennifer also. Is asking you to kind of like look into a crystal ball a little bit and say, like, do you think the results will be different for if, let's say, it's an older group like 25 to 35 instead of the younger group like between 18 to 25?
I think it would. Actually, the reason why I picked 18 to 25 is because I would say when I did my literature review, 80% of the current studies that look into post-breakup distress, they only study the group of participants that are between 18 to 25. I think it's because it's easier to sample university students to give them extra credit. Yeah, so all the studies have followed this age range, and I also just followed the same methodology for my studies. So if there are additional studies that look at different age groups, you might have different results, yes.
Okay, so probably it might be more suggestive of if you do your upward counterfactual, then yeah. All right, thank you. Let me just see. I think there's a question for Shelley now. And that question has got to do with a recent article that was published, which is, let me see, the person who asked about the recent IMH study found that half of Singaporeans youth between the age of 15 to 21 have problematic smartphone usage and are more likely to have developed anxiety and depression. So the question is, should youth workers still use social media in the intervention? And if yes, how can a youth worker help this youth? Yeah, so not sure whether in your research as you ask question, right? They also tell you a little bit about like the downside and how they've been mitigating. Yeah. So yeah, over to you, Shelley.
Okay, so I understand where this question is coming from, because it seems like maybe we are making the situation worse. Yeah, but then I think problematic smartphone use is due to like dependency and like based on the duration that they spend online, right? So I think it's even more so that youth workers should use social media, because that's when all the youths are at. Because when you do outreach, like those youths that are outside maybe probably don't have maybe addiction to smartphone and all. Yeah, so these people who are using smartphone maybe tend to be at home more frequently, so they are like kind of out of reach for youth workers. Yeah, so I think then youth workers should use social media in order to kind of reach them, and then kind of, maybe form a relationship with them online, and then slowly kind of drag them out of the house, or or like introduce some activities that the youth organization have, and hopefully it can kind of mitigate this problem. Yeah.
Right. So Shelley, what I'm hearing from your response is that actually, from your research, it seems to suggest that, like the youth workers at present, at least in the Singapore context, they are using a lot of the like social media or like the technology as a means to an end. So it's more like we build a connection first, because sometimes it's difficult to have that relationship, right? If like they are just staying at home and they do not want to meet anybody. So is that quite prevalent in the from the research from the sample that you draw, that they actually use quite a number of this like strategies, like I would say like social tapping on social media to engage.
I think more of the youth workers that I interviewed, they engage youths who are not really, like they are present in the offline area also. Yeah, so not so much, they haven't like kind of moved on to really fully using online as a means to engage youths who are just using phone and not coming out of their house. Yeah. Yeah, so for now it's just based on whoever they meet offline, then they will kind of get their social media and then kind of engage them continuously through like social media to kind of maintain that relationship. Yeah.
So just one more question pertaining to your area of research. I suppose when you did your lead review, you say that because what I was extremely curious about your research was that you say that the overseas, our counterparts in overseas have been engaging in this digital youth work. What's that experience like for them so far? Like, because I'm hearing that Singapore youth workers are using, but not as much. Am I right to say that? Yeah, kind of like do you think that's a fair statement that I'm making based on what you have presented?
Mm. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think not as much, or it's mainly still like offline work. Yeah, and not so much of using technology or digitalization. Yeah, yeah.
As
So, mm,
as compared to our foreign counterparts, lah.
mm,
Okay. Right. Okay, so let me ask Inshira. The audience are very interested in programs, the programs that are being developed, and of course, one thing I don't know how many like youth workers are in the audience, but they and they seem very interested to talk to you and hear more about the kind of like programs that are being organized. Because especially for myself, I was looking at your presentation and you talk about alternating between outdoor and indoor program. So what are some of the challenges, that, let me see, the level of support and supervision that the youth require when planning for the program? And what are some challenges that you think that you heard that they have encountered while planning for the program?
Okay, so the level of supervision. Okay, so I think because you know, the importance of providing youth with the autonomy in planning the programs is, it's important lah. So from the data that I've collected, yeah, most of the workers, they were there as a supervisory presence to the youths while the youths plan and execute the programs. So they only step in when they see that the program isn't suitable for their age, or there are some, conflicts that happen within the programs in the whole planning process. So that is the level of supervision that the workers that I interviewed uh, implemented for the youth lah. Yeah. And then challenges that youth encounter while planning for the programs, right? Yeah. So a lot of times, I guess it's conflicts among each other thing, because youths themselves, they are very vocal and they are quite opinionated. So yeah, managing these conflicts between them is one of the most main concerns and challenges. Yeah.
You say that youths are opinionated. I guess a lot of us are opinionated too. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, but I mean, whenever we have a stake in something, we probably be more opinionated, right?
Yes, of course.
That's quite natural. Yeah. So you talk about the worker only stepping in, and one of the things that one of the values that they seem to be promoting is, of course, to foster that autonomy, right?
Yes.
And then I'm also hearing that when they only step in and then deal with the conflict, so it's a lot of teachable moments.
Yeah.
Did the workers share with you like how some of this? I don't know whether it's been part of your like research as you hear their stories,
Mm-hmm.
because I suppose many of the people who are attending our session this afternoon are also practitioners and would like to kind of glean some insights, since you've done that research,
Yeah.
whether they have also shared with you how they use those moments and how it has been helpful for them to kind of like um promote teachable moments and
Mm-hmm.
manage conflict, or had there been a situation so bad that okay, we don't want to do it, and everybody just tear apart and then like just go off?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm, I didn't really explore in this study in particular,
Mm,
but I did have some experiences because, the reason why I did this thesis in the first place was my experiences in a youth agency previously.
right.
So I did observe how workers handled conflicts between the youths in the agencies and how they made it into teachable moments. Yeah. So I guess how they made it into teachable moments was that they took a step back and then, they started to debrief one of them and, provide them that space to reflect on their feelings that they were feeling at that moment. And I think it's very effective, definitely, to have these real life teachable moments because these youths they are more likely to have takeaways and they are more likely to learn better from these real life experiences. Yeah,
Mm.
so yeah.
Right, thank you. As I was just listening in, I was also looking at the list of questions. So one of the questions specific to you, Inshira, was um, this audience actually wanted to know how was the engagement aspect of your study measured? So I think they want to know how did you operationalize that, and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that would be helpful for you to shed light on.
Okay, so because I think I mentioned that there aren't many studies that focus on promoting youth participation in Singapore, right?
Mm,
So um, because this study serves as like a starter to, further studies in futures to focus on youth participation in programs lah. So okay, so that's why in this study itself, I didn't really use a specific measure to measure the engagement level of youths in programs because again, we are taking it from the perspective of youth workers. And I essentially adopted a semi-structured interview, a qualitative interview
mm.
method. So it was difficult for me to use a measure to really measure the level of engagement of youths in programs. Yeah, so but I hope that future studies would employ like an engagement measure, a metric or something to measure the engagement levels of youth so that we can better understand whether these facilitators were effective in promoting youth engagement and attendance in programs.
Right, thank you. So, ladies, we've been asking very specific questions. I mean, like questions very specific to your research, ranging from the constructs to the experience and your lit review. So, I thought, as we gradually work towards wrapping up to this afternoon session, I thought it'd be so precious because this. I suppose this will be the first, for the, and many more to come. Hopefully, or is it too daunting already? Then I don't think we want to ever do research again. So this is a question for all of you, and I'm just going to give you an opportunity to answer. Like having done this piece of research, probably first formal piece of research, honors thesis. What were some of the learning points for yourself? you know if you were to look back and say, how could you have done it differently, and what was that experience? If I could just tap on you to share, because I also noticed some of our your juniors in the room. Yeah, so that probably will help them make a better decision as to whether they want to do ISM or they want to do honors thesis. But I think that will be the secondary effect, but more importantly, I'm hoping for you all to reflect so that whether they are students or practitioners, some of the like learning, as we engage in our very first piece of research. Jennifer, maybe over to you, your reflection about about doing this work.
One of the learning points I wrote in my like long actual thesis itself was that I understood the importance of research funding for research, because you're really asking participants to dedicate their time and a lot of their motivation and energy to complete your study, which most of the time shouldn't benefit them directly in any way. So it would be nice if you have financial reimbursement for participation in your studies. I mean, I think my peers were quite lucky that you interviewed social work practitioners, and they're generally very magnanimous. They're willing to participate without any reimbursement. But yeah, my group of people were basically youths. Yeah, youths, teens between 18 to 25 who could do with financial reimbursement. So I guess one learning point I would tell my juniors is I know social work department doesn't really have a specific research fund for thesis students, but try to secure external research funding, especially if you're doing a quantitative study, because that helps to bump up your sample size, and with more sample size, it's probably easier to find a statistically significant result. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Jen. Shirley, what about you? Your own learning point.
I think one learning point for me is to build connections with different people. Like why I say this is because my research I needed to find youth workers to be interviewed and all. So I think besides my previous intern place, like I did not have any other kind of connections and all. So I had to it was a challenge for me to kind of find people to interview. Like I mean in total I only have like 6 interviewees. Yeah, so I think in order to do research, I think the connection kind of play an important part also, like whether you can reach out to a certain group of people and all. Yeah. But overall I think writing a HT is like kind of a new and exciting experience. I think it's different from just taking a usual module and then like sitting in class and all. I think like from a thesis you actually get to learn new things about maybe the sector itself and also, and also how to do research in general, which I think normal modules don't really teach you like the process and all. Yeah.
Thanks, Shirley. Inshira, for yourself?
One takeaway is that don't be afraid. If you have a specific interest that you want to explore more on, I definitely advise and uh advise you guys to do thesis because it definitely broaden your perspectives on that particular topic. And also you get to know and meet many people out there, I think as Shirley mentioned, and it helps to build your connections. And also I think, even though it's your own research, you get to learn a lot of things. You get to learn the research processes. You get to learn about the specific interests that you're interested in. Like, for example, youth work for me. I get to learn more about it through this thesis. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So you have shared your thesis, you have shared your learning. There is okay, I classified it as a personal question. It was not asked by me, but by the audience. So since it's a personal question, I'll leave it to you to see whether you are comfortable. You have the right to say, oh, okay, I don't think I want to answer this because my presentation is not about this. But I guess they're probably like either people who are looking to recruit you or they are your juniors who want to see what you're doing. So they want to know, like, now that you have graduated from, NUS, Department of Social Work, what's next for you career-wise? Are you joining the sector? Are you working towards being an academic? Or yeah, but this is purely personal, and that will be our last question. All right. So if you are comfortable, you answer. If you're not comfortable, it's okay. You just tell me, I'll pass. Okay. Jennifer?
So I like to share that I've been accepted as a PhD student at SMU. So
Wow,
I'm
congratulations.
this August, and I'll be doing my doctorate in psychology, again, relationship science, so more of heartbreaks, or hopefully not so much heartbreaks. Yeah. And yeah, the end goal is to be in academia. So I'll be open to industry research options too, but generally I'm leaning towards indirect practice. Yeah, if we're talking about the whole dichotomy between direct and indirect practice in social work.
Right. And I'm sure you are going to bring your not exactly newfound knowledge, but okay, your reminder of like we need more research funding to your next project.
Yeah.
Your learning point. Yeah. But congratulations, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Shirley, what about you? Are you working already?
I'm starting work in like around September with
Mm.
Orkin FSC.
Wow.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
think it's like something different from my usual, like because I've been working with reviews and all, so I think I wanted to try something different. Yeah, and like maybe hopefully I'm kind of interested in research also, so
Mm.
hopefully in the future I'll be given opportunities or like take initiatives to like start a research project, hopefully. Yeah.
Sure. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Shirley, for sharing that. And Shira, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm currently working at a PCSC, Protection Specialist Center. So it's different from youth work, but down the road, I do see myself in youth work. So this is just something to just change my scenery a bit lah.
Right. Okay. So I hope that you would continue to deepen the links with NUS, Department of Social Work, as well as SSR, so that if there's any research opportunity, mentoring, and all that, you can always come back to us. All right. So let me see. Asher, is that all? Administratively.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll hand over the time to Asher. Thank you, ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen.
so thank you so much, everybody, as well as the speakers. So Jennifer, Shirley, and Insira for your presentation. Thanks, Elvin, for your rescue moderation of the event. So now, as you can see, the seminar feedback poll is now on your screens. Please help us by giving us your feedback so that we can improve as much as possible. Before you go, there are a few other announcements, so please hold on. The first is that our next seminar registration is open. So this seminar is on public attitudes towards persons with disability. It will be happening on the 28th of August, and you can actually register for the seminar now by scanning the QR code. This and other upcoming seminars and other upcoming events will also be available through our mailing list. So if you would like to know more of these events, please let us know. I'll leave this slide up for a while so that you can scan to join our the QR code to join our mailing list. Thank you everybody for attending this session and have a good evening ahead. Thank you.